Can you hear me okay? So my presentation, I think, got lost in crypto land, but that's all right. I can just talk to you. Done this enough now, I think. And I like time for Q&A, so maybe we'll extend the Q&A time a little bit longer. And one of the things that's really interesting in this is reflecting a little bit. I've been to every single one of these Texas Bitcoin conferences, and the first one was, what was it, four and a half years ago, Paul? And some kind of historic things have happened at a lot of these events, like this event. I think it was the first one was the day that Dorian Nakamoto was revealed by Newsweek as being Satoshi. Was anybody here then? How many people were here at the first one? Oh, wow, that's interesting because it's and the second one. So most people first. This is the first time they've been to one, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's been a real amazing amount of change and just a wild ride. When the first events that we did, we were sitting on the floor. There was it was great to come in here and see the Cachesis coins and the radio, Mark Edge, because that was really all you had at the early conferences. There was I remember the first time an attorney came and everybody's like, why would an attorney come here? There's no reason that anything to do with law would be here. And then a venture capitalist came and people really freaked out. They were like, here? And if you go back to the forums from those days, there's a funny post from 2013 when Amir Taki wanted to raise $50,000 for Dark Wallet. And that was the most that anybody had ever raised for any project in blockchain. And people were totally ridiculing it. They're like, $50,000? What kind of lavish fundraise is that? What is he going to do? Pay himself and hire a development team and pay for a web designer? It's insane. And now we have people raising, $200 million on a white paper. So I'll just talk quickly about a couple things that I think are important. And unfortunately, I don't have the slide, so I'll just talk about a couple things that I think are important and point you to a couple neat projects. And then I'll open it up for Q&A. So one thing that I think is really important is to keep in mind the cypherpunk values that gave birth to this. Every single thing we see here in this blockchain world really came from this movement, which was kind of started in, I guess, the late 80s, really, but sort of crystallized in the 90s. And I think the Cypherpunk Manifesto paper was 95 or 98, I'm sure somebody knows, by Eric Hughes. And that basically set out this sort of set of principles. It's really great read. Just Google Cypherpunk Manifesto. It's only a page. It'll take you 30 seconds to read it. But it's worth it because it talks a lot about this kind of concept of in an electronic world where we have all of this information out there, privacy becomes increasingly important. And, the things like physical security are less important. So you need to really rely on heavy cryptography and encryption and things like that. And it covers a lot of this kind of cool thing. And, one of the things that really applies well to this part of it, this sort of blockchain thing, which came from that movement, is this concept of you just sort of write code and put it out there. And I think that's very, very interesting because of the way that incentives are aligned when you have things like open source projects, when we can just put it out there. Like Bitcoin was put out there. It wasn't a pre-mine or an ICO like some of these things. It was put out with shared and aligned interests. And I think that open source projects particularly, but the entire blockchain technology, I think, will really enable you to have a lot of different ways to have interests be aligned and share in revenue and things like that. Right now, we're looking at kind of putting a square peg in a round hole, trying to figure out how to tokenize securities, which I think will be huge, by the way. That's my business, 100% focused on tokenization of securities. But eventually, what we call securities won't really even exist. We'll move on to other things. With these corporate structures can be improved on. And there's a lot of other things. There's a lot of neat things like co-ops. There's some huge organizations that you think are companies that aren't really companies, like REI and Welch's Grape Juice and Land O'Lakes and Ocean Spray. These are not corporations; they're all co-ops, and things like co-ops can be made easier through tokens. So, and you can have all kinds of complex structures with smart contracts and things like that. And there's a lot more ways to even the playing field where the various stakeholders all have interests aligned. So I think that's one thing that's really interesting. One quick tool I'll share with you that, again, sorry we don't have the slides, but it's called Spacesuit X. If you go to spacesuitx.org, what Spacesuit X is, it's an acronym, which real simple. It's 10 letters. So each letter stands for something that you could look for in evaluating digital assets. So it's a simple, free, open source tool. If you happen to be an analyst, or you run a fund, or you write a blog or something, you're welcome to use this. It belongs to you just as much as it belongs to me. It belongs to the community. And you're welcome, if you can make money on it, great, that's all yours. It's your tool to do with what you wish. So anyway, again, sorry, there's you can't see it on the big thing, but if you look at the tool, I'll just run through it really quickly. So it's 10 letters. Spacesuit X stands for security, participation, accounting and legal, community management and team, earnings, supply and demand, usability, the industry or institutional backing, technical factors, and the X factor. So each of those criteria, and you could go through it if you look at the page. So each of those criteria, and it has kind of a one word and a one sentence and then a one paragraph description. So security would say, okay, what is the security of this blockchain? How does it work? All of those kind of things. So that's a cool tool. And then if you assign it, each thing, like if you say, okay, Bitcoin has really good security, I'm going to rank that a 9. And you go right through it, you can easily come up with a score of 1 to 100 that tells you what you think that digital asset might be worth. So hopefully it'll give you some tools, because I think it's very. I'm very concerned about a lot of people jumping into ICOs, because I think that a lot of them are going to fail. How am I doing on time? I can't read that. Okay, so. Let me see, what else can I cover? Yeah, let me go ahead and open it for questions. I think there's a lot of, I can kind of at least try to answer almost any question you'd have. I'm not super technical, but I've been in the space a long time. And I've seen a lot. I love to give advice too. So if you're looking for a job in the space or something like that, let me know.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Could you give us a little understanding of Spacesuit X? Because I'm looking
Sure.
at it, and it looks like it's up to me to determine what each item is.
It is.
I'm really asking my own self what I think something's worth.
Right. Yeah, it's a tool for you to be thinking about these things, because what happens is we'll read a pitch, or we'll look at something and we'll say, wow, this blockchain is amazing. It's incredible security. It's the most secure blockchain. It's going to beat Bitcoin. But we're not really thinking about these other things. Or you get sucked into an ICO that's talking all about these numbers, but not these other ones. So it is a tool for yourself. It's a tool for you to look at some other analysts. So if you trust me as an analyst, you can say, all right, what is Bruce looking at in this? Or if you trust him as an analyst, you say, okay, he says he has a buy rating on ABC ICO. Why is that? And what is he looking at it? What is
the Spacesuit X, for instance, store your opinion of Bitcoin?
Yeah, you could put any digital asset that you're considering. If somebody's filled it out, that's why I made it open source. So you could be an analyst and and some people have done it. I've actually never done a report. I invented the tool, but other people have done reports. So if you Google it, you'll see a few people who've done reports, and you could do your own report as well.
You wouldn't find them here on the site. You have to Google and say, could I see the Spacesuit X report?
Yeah, it's brand new. It's only been out a couple weeks, so there's only a few reports. But yeah, that's a great idea. Eventually, yeah, it would be super cool
to have it on the site.
Yeah, definitely. Aggregate them all.
Right now, I just Google the name of the analyst and then Spacesuit X.
Well, it's more. Yeah, there's only a couple out there now, so it's more of a tool for analysts or self-analyzing. Like if you're looking at a digital asset to say, here's 10 questions you might want to ask yourself, like what do I think about this or that?
Fair enough. Thanks.
Yes. Would it help if we put the site up on the machine?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
Why don't you do that, and I'll let him ask the question.
Okay.
Or tell me how to do it.
It's just spacesuitx.org. Go ahead.
All right, so I kind of got a off-topic question for you. Maybe it's making an answer, but I mean, what do you think about timing the market? You know, when is the right time to, buy coins? And what do you think about software that automates that stuff? Scripts and whatnot that can automate buying and selling. And is it important to buy at a certain time to get the most out of your money?
Yeah, the scripts and the programs that do it sometimes can work really well, but typically they don't work really well for a long time. Sometimes they may not work, and once in a while they have a catastrophic error where they, the algorithm doesn't predict something that happens with the market, and you lose a whole bunch. So you have a little chance of a big problem, a big chance of not much gain, and a small chance of some gain that will most likely be short term. So overall, they're not that great unless you maybe put a little bit in, and if you luck out and you kind of ahead of the curve on an algorithm for a few months, it's good. As far as overall timing, it's hard to say when there's a good time or bad time. I believe that you should really know the technology, look at these things like the spacesuit X factors, and really believe in it. And particularly in the case of something like Bitcoin, people should only buy it if they really believe that it's better money. Because if it's not better money, then it's a really, really, really stupid thing to buy. I mean, it really is tulips if you don't believe it's better money. But if you do believe it's better money and you understand why it's money, and you ask questions like what is money and what are the properties of money and why does this beat it, then it makes sense to be all in. So I was all in a long time ago, and it's hard to say. I mean, I converted all my money I had into Bitcoin as it rose from 30 all the way up to 800. And my last dollar I had, I put in at 800. I felt like a genius when it hit 1,000. And then it went to 900 and 800 and 700 and 400 and 330. And then I went to Jason King, our friend's conference in October of 2014, and it was obvious that we had lost. We were wrong, clearly. You foolish, crazy geeks all lost your life savings in Bitcoin. Every venture capitalist left. Lawyers and accountants didn't bother showing up because these deadbeats are never going to be able to pay their bills. The two startups that there was, Coinbase and BitPay, were struggling. Conferences weren't even able to sell the tickets. And we're sitting there, and the price had gone down to 330, and all the press said, well, obviously the Bitcoin experiment failed. It was at 1,000, now it's at 330, and everybody's exiting the industry. They're going to VR startups and drone companies. And then I walked into the conference thing, and it goes from 330 to 230. And then I said, that's it. And I said, did we lose? Are we done? Was it a joke? And somebody in the back said, F no! And on that day, every seller that there was had sold. There was nobody left but crazy flipping holders like me who will never sell, ever. It will never sell, not if it goes to a penny, not if it goes to $1 million. We believe this is better money, and we've made a decision that this is what we're going to do. And that's it. But I'm not going back to that crappy money. And if I believed that then, when I saw my life savings dwindle before my eyes and be destroyed, how the hell do you think I feel today? I will never, ever, ever leave this community. I will never sell. And there's more of us every day. And when there's more of us every day, that's when the real stuff happens. If there's more of us that really believe this is better money, sometime it shifts, right? If there's enough of us, someday it's going to shift. Because if there's enough people, next time it crashes 90%, there's going to be more people than that crazy ragtag group of fools back in Jason King's conference in 2013. Some of you are going to be in that room. And then it's going to happen again, and there's going to be more of us. So it didn't kill us before. That was the last chance. I said it on that day. I said, if the governments want to end this, they better kill everybody in this room right now. Because if it doesn't die now, it's not going to die. Because the people that aren't going to sell just aren't going to sell. So it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? I mean, it's just, and now it's like the dreamers are actually, making the future. I mean, it's actually working. It's really amazing. I mean, I get so excited by this. Every day I wake up And I say, look at what this technology is going to be able to do. I mean, the freedom that we can bring to people. And it was such a crazy idea just a few years ago, right here. Paul lost his shirt, if you don't mind me saying, on his conference. I think he said that publicly because nobody wanted to come. And Paul said, I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. And not only am I doing it, I'm doing a big giant one. And it was, what was it, like, 8,000 Bitcoin or something back then?
Well, yeah, it was definitely significant amounts of Bitcoin that went into putting on that first conference, yeah. Or the second one, too.
Other questions? I can't see that, so I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right.
That's to finish your presentation.
Oh,
and then
okay.
you do
Yeah, I went off because
another 20.
the slides and whatever, and then I got emotional about this thing.
Well, here,
Go ahead.
let's let Steve talk.
So I'm really interested in your thoughts on the way the crypto markets shake out over years. Right now, we got this big fight over the Bitcoin drama panel. I'm excited about because Bitcoin drama is you could put all caps. But do you feel like there's a couple of winners, and what kind of cryptocurrency is going to win this thing, or does everybody? Right now, everybody's winning. It's great, but at some point, maybe it becomes less of a.
Yeah, I mean, now it's kind of like everything is rising. And particularly some of these ICOs aren't really blockchain projects. So blockchain is booming, but it's a mistake to say, okay, just because blockchain is booming, we're going to go into this financial structure that is backed by blockchain. That doesn't mean it's going to grow. By the way, this is Steve from Overstock and Medici, who I'm on the board of Medici, which I'm really excited about because Overstock is... as you hopefully know, one of the earliest really large, high-quality companies that got into this feet first. And one of the super neat things, if you don't mind me saying so, about Medici is that they have this really great operational excellence with people like Steve, who as an attorney and a deal maker can kind of run circles around a lot of people in the this newer part of the industry because they've been doing it for a long, long time. So I hope you don't mind that plug, Steve. But I think that there's going to be, more than one cash, more than one currency. So, I wouldn't really want us to have Bitcoin be 100% market share of all currency.
But isn't that novel? We only have one currency in the world today.
Which one's that?
We only have the dollar. There's nothing
True.
else, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I'm sorry I'm riffing on his statement, but a lot of criticism of Bitcoin is that there should be only one, and yet there's no evidence in the world that competition goes away just because there's one coin that's worth a fair amount. There's always going to be multiple currencies and multiple coins for different reasons. But anyway, you might want to talk about that because you're talking about Bitcoin as money, but there's so many other applications.
Yeah. So I would envision there'd be a few money. Charlie Lee wrote a really neat piece about how he envisioned the same thing that he originally came up with, which was Litecoin silver to Bitcoin's gold. And he talked about it having maybe a potentially faster transaction layer to do things like soda purchases and things like that. Dash has worked on something similar, trying to be faster, quicker. A lot of Bitcoin people have sort of gravitated towards this idea of like, okay, Bitcoin's your really, really serious money. That maybe you hold it over here, maybe you do things on side chains, and that's controversial. But that's just the currency piece, which is only a third of the world's money, which is a big deal, a third of the world's money. But you still have this whole, the other kind of third is real estate and securities of some sort, ownership, it's very, very rough numbers, obviously, but there's going to be a ton of applications in those areas. I personally think everything is going to be tokenized. So I think I think the whole pie will be tokenized. I think there's already a lot of projects tokenizing real estate. Publicly traded securities are really low-hanging fruit. This is a vastly superior technology that is way, way better than anything else that existed before. So why would anybody go back to the world of it takes between 3 to 11 weeks to move your money from Charles Schwab to Merrill Lynch if you have Microsoft stock and you want to move it. 3 weeks. It's that maybe a few years ago at Texas Bitcoin Conference 1, people have been like, oh yeah, that's what it takes. But once people have had a taste of the way that real technology should work, and ownership of their own assets, they're not really going to tolerate that much, especially when this technology will, within the matter of months, enable them to have an alternative where they can move their, those assets much quicker. And then there's, so there's the whole securities pie, and then there will be securities that wouldn't have been securities right now. Your local sandwich shop doesn't go public ever. But now they'll be able to. They'll be able to go, even right now, legally, they can go under the Jobs Act, up to $1 million they could raise. So they could go to their customers, say, oh, you like my sandwiches? Maybe you put in $1,000. Maybe you put in $50. Maybe a wealthy investor from China who's building a portfolio of 1,000 of these puts in $100,000. Maybe, wealthy Aunt Sally puts in $50,000. And now you all have tokens and they can trade on a wallet. I mean, it's really incredible. And then maybe he wants the tokens back, so he starts buying them back, or you can do sales, or you can do different things like that. Maybe there's a shooting in the neighborhood, people sell their token. I mean, there's really a lot of interesting things that can happen when you open up capital to be traded and moved around a lot easier.
Let's move to some questions for the last segment.
Thank you. Hello. In your opinion, what are the top 3 companies in Austin that are doing interesting work?
I don't really know where almost anybody is headquartered because of course, Factum. I'm an advisor to Factum. I've been friends with Factum since long before there was Factum. And I remember the early germinations with Paul's crazy idea that it might be a business.
Steemit has kind of moved to Factum.
Okay.
To Austin. Decred is in this area, Round Rock, but might as well be Austin. And Stash, who's one of our sponsors, they're in Austin. Wen Chain, at the very corner over here, in the exhibit area, they're in Austin. And there's probably a few. I'm gonna apologize to anybody who's in Austin and knows. Does anybody else in Austin know of somebody else that I forgot? Okay, what's that? Well, multi-chain, multi-coin. Multi-coin is here, and there's another one, but I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Numerai?
Numerai. Okay, Numerai.
Cool.
So that's at least some of the people that are in Austin.
Other questions?
I was wondering if there's any red flags you could identify for ICOs.
Sure. Yeah. You could go through that list, the spacesuit list. First off, right, security. A lot of them, it's okay to depend on another chain if the other chain is strong. But you really want to, it's not a trivial matter when you have hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. So whether it's your own chain or somebody else's chain, that's kind of important. It's like a bank. Does it have a wall? Does it have a door? Real basic stuff. One of my biggest concerns is there's a few concerns. I think it's wonderful that blockchain has enabled it to be more frictionless and easier to raise money. The side effect of that is that it makes it really, really easy for anybody to do a project. So there's not a lot of quality control. So you end up with this, gold rush of low quality projects. And some of them don't have anything to do with blockchain. They just, I'm going to raise money for, virtual reality, whatever. And they're getting, way, way outsized valuations of what they would in any other situation. Then some of them kind of trying to just throw the word blockchain on top of it because they think that'll satisfy people that are concerned about what I just said. But they're not really blockchain projects. And then a very, very tiny percentage are really actually trying to be blockchain projects. And of those, 90% will fail, just like any other startup. So you're looking at maybe a couple percent of the current batch of ICOs. Other than that, you're going to lose every single penny you put in them, I think.
Why don't you, can you explain the difference between an ICO and an IPO? Because I think a lot of people might be getting those concepts confused.
So an ICO is an initial coin offering. IPO is initial public offering. And now they're going to become the same thing, really, because ICO is the new public. I don't see a lot of companies in the future.
Well, I
who are
mean, I
gonna be
think the
doing
big, the
that.
big difference between an IPO is it's always a company that's firmly established,
Right.
while right now we're seeing most ICOs as being seed money. And there's a big risk difference, right?
Huge risk difference, and I mean, you don't, never in history have you given $100 million to a company without operations. I mean, just a few years ago, Paul and I have done a lot of things in finance and stuff. I mean, and you maybe have as well. I mean, I remember just 5 years ago, I've seen deals that were like $3 million deals where they're acquiring like real companies that are with solid revenue, and depending on the industry, I mean, sometimes it's not even at a high multiple. So yeah, there's a lot of concerns. Low quality teams, get rich quick people. I was just at an event just the other day, and somebody said they needed advice on their ICO, and I said, "Oh, all right." And he said, "Yeah, what exchange do I get to trade it on?" I said, "Wow, that's what you're asking. I mean, that kind of shows like he doesn't really know anything at all. He just heard that he could make money on an ICO. So and somebody's going to give him money, and they're going to lose it. So, yeah, but just to be clear, I don't advocate any regulation about this. I think that it will self-regulate. I think the best self-regulation is when people lose their shirt and say, "Wow, maybe I shouldn't have bought that because Paris Hilton tweeted it." I didn't use the Spacesuit X analysis method to determine the accuracy and well-balancedness of Paris Hilton's analytics. Yes.
Okay, two-part question. What, in your opinion, is the best exchange or vehicle for as you need to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin, cost versus convenience, the top exchange or exchanges to use?
It's tough. I get asked that a lot. It's a hard question. I mean, I like Coinbase. It's large, it's big, it's stable, it's easy. I recommend it to a lot of newbies because it's so easy to set up. I like Kraken a lot because I really believe in the management. They've so far had very good security. If you like a lot of coins like ICOs, then Poloniex. But they're maybe some people don't consider them as certainly not as stable and large as something like Coinbase. So there's a lot of different ones. I mean, but yeah, for simplicity, Coinbase probably. You had a question there?
Yeah, I wondered if you'd just talk for a moment about Bitcoin as a currency and the opportunity there as compared to blockchain as a technology that offers a where do you see the advantages? And I mean, do you think that blockchain is going to be the thing that comes out and takes over this whole movement, or is it going to be that something in the currency market that's going to replace all the currencies? How do you look at that?
That's a really great question, and really makes me think maybe the answer is both. Maybe we have two revolutions going on now. This sort of blockchain revolution, and Bitcoin and blockchain are invented in the same white paper, so it is the same revolution, but it's split, into two revolutions because it is. You're right. It is two very different things. You have this kind of the currency thing it's a third of the world's money. It's a big deal, and what was really interesting, everybody saw Jamie Dimon's speech a couple weeks ago, right? Did you catch what he said at the beginning? Blockchain is great. We use blockchain. God bless blockchain. What if that was the headline 3 years ago? We would have flipped out. If the local bank would have said that at Paul's first conference, we would have flipped out. Jamie Dimon says, God bless blockchain. So it is sort of two revolutions. There's that revolution, and maybe he will like it, and a lot of people will support it. It will be a different constituency because it has all kinds of applications. Anywhere where you have a trusted party, blockchain technology can offer an advantage. But then there's this little kind of, for some, a side effect, for others, a benefit, that, oh, by the way, this technology also enables all those great things for people who don't like your crooked, corrupt, broken money system. And so you have that revolution, which Jamie Dimon doesn't like. But if he believes in the technology, then the only argument left is that he would say our money's inferior to his money. he's not going to have that debate because we beat it in all the criteria that makes money. You know, I mean, it's more fungible, it's a limited supply. I mean, you know, so it's more scarce. It's actually building and holding value now. It sounds crazy because he is right about one thing when he sort of sneered that the whole size of our market was 150 billion. That was a few weeks ago, so now it's like 180 or something. But you know, under 200 billion, and he moves 6 trillion a day. Well, for one thing, he's changing two metrics: what you move versus what you have. It's a big difference. He doesn't have 6 trillion, but anyway, he's significantly bigger, and we are tiny. However, when I was a financial advisor, they used to say, you know, don't judge anything by 1-year track records, these crazy hedge funds. Anybody can get 90% in a year. Judge by 3-year. Well, now we have 5 years, and a good and increasing number of the market has said that his system wasn't that good, and ours is better, and there's more people like this, and there's more people, you know, these complete true believers like I was talking about, and more in this room. Back here.
This is a two-part question, kind of related. What do you see as the top 3 industries that are primed for disruption in the coming year, like just within the year, because we know how fast we're moving? And as far as what you were talking about before with the U.S. Job Act, that anyone can raise up to $1 million by just basically putting out their own ICO. What do you see, how would that be regulated in terms of like the U.S. government regulation? Do you have to go through like Cayman Islands or some other country in order to set up the ICO? Because we know how complicated that could be right now in this space.
Sure. So for the first part of your question, with the 3 areas that I think will be disrupted most, I think the first 2 are finance, 2 different parts of finance. Asset management of all of the things that have value, I think, will be tokenized. And then there's a whole other piece of finance, which is all of the back office operations that Fidelity and Charles Schwab, they don't like that it takes 3 to 11 weeks to move the money around. Nobody's really making any money. There's no fat in there. That's why Jamie Dimon says, God bless blockchain. So there's 2 pieces to it. Sort of the first piece, and included in that finance of where you move money around, it includes currency, which is a really, really big deal. So that would be, globally disruptive beyond industries. You're talking earth-shattering disruption of the level of the internet or the printing press. Way, way more disruptive than any massive corporation could ever be. So those two, those 2 areas of finance. Are key, and then I think I think real estate is another important one. There's going to be a lot, which kind of goes with the other categories, I guess. So much disruption in so many different areas. The second part with the Jobs Act, from what I'm not an attorney, but from my understanding of the law, basically it's very easy to do a Jobs Act offering up to $1,050,000. You can do it with very little paperwork. I think it's like a 12-month waiting period. You can do another one, and it's apparently very, very simple. Now the trick is when you want to tokenize that. Again, you don't want to get legal advice from me, because even with my own lawyers, I tend to try and push a thing. But from my understanding, it would be that you would be able to legally do it as a token and issue widgets or whatever. The problem is the secondary market, because the government allows these tokens to be issued, but then there's other laws over here related to securities which make it so it's very difficult to trade. They have to be on a portal, and a portal isn't really defined. So somebody's going to crack that and be able to do it. And I predict that in the near future we'll have a lot of tokens being traded for micro companies and small offerings.
Very good. Hey, Bruce, first I want to thank you for being here, because obviously you bring a world of knowledge and experience in the space. And from up in the Northeast, I'm just curious your perspective on the special purpose bank provisions that are being discussed for those of us that are looking at the currency aspect.
I'm not real familiar with that. That's in where is that, in Massachusetts?
No, under the federal banking guidelines, to be able to create a special purpose fintech bank, so we can compete against that. inefficiency that's going on out there with fiat.
Yeah, I don't. It's not something I follow. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Naive question. Why would you keep on saying tokenizing everything and not coinizing things?
Well, because I think the word coin, if you look up the word token and coin, token's a little more broad. Coin really means money, and some of these tokens may not be money. A security could be used as money, but isn't really money. If I have a share of Microsoft, it's kind of money. You may accept it for a lunch, but it's not necessarily money. And some of them are even further out there, which is why I made the Spacesuit X project, because unlike equities, with equities, you have a level platform. They all have some kind of earnings or losses, and they have some kind of debt or assets. But with tokens, they're all over the map. It's some are donations to APIs, some are donations to illegal nonprofits, some are securities, some are not. So looking at common criteria that they have in common. Go ahead.
I'm also going to say that running a project, you want to stay away from liability. Coin is dangerous. Token is a little easier. But we're going to go into fast question mode.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start being rude. Go ahead.
If we could get back to exchanges briefly, I wanted to see if you could give us your opinion of the future of distributed exchanges. Seems like right now there's always problems, whether it's slippage or liquidity or fraud, whatever. And so is it a matter of network effects, or are there some significant breakthroughs that you're expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people have been working on distributed exchanges for a while. So, I think there's going to be some really big things there. I think it's really exciting what Shapeshift is doing, and also what T0 is doing. If you saw some of the announcements that Patrick Byrne made, that's very interesting as well, because that is a licensed ATS that's able to trade securities tokens, and nobody else in the world can do that now.
I just want to know, do you have any opinion on some of the better coins that might be better used in areas like Venezuela or some of the other countries that are having trouble with their currencies?
Probably Bitcoin's the best one, I think. I think there might be some others that have better privacy features, like Monero, and there's some other things. But Bitcoin does have this network effect. It's pretty private, pretty good, pretty easy, and it can be used as money in an increasing number of places in the world.
Of course, the problem is transaction volume, but we're fixing that, right? Anyway, here's another question.
Hi, I know this is a Bitcoin conference, but can you comment at all on currencies like Ethereum and smart contracts and things like that?
Yeah, I like Ethereum a lot. That's one of the benefits of these early conferences. There was this 16-year-old kid who was a writer for Bitcoin magazine and was extremely impressive because he earned himself like $250 worth of Bitcoin writing articles. I said, wow, that is sharp. And he came up with this crazy project that I didn't understand. And I said, sure, I'll donate to your crazy crowd sale, Vitalik. And so it's nice to have had that, to be able to see those in the early days. So, of course, I'm going to always say good things about Ethereum. I think it's an interesting project. From what I understand, there's some scalabilities and internal issues that should really try and strengthen that blockchain. I didn't really support the DAO fork, but that's a long time ago. So, what's that? 30 seconds? Okay. So no more time for questions, I guess. But I'll just close by saying, I mean, it's really an extraordinary journey, and don't let these stories of the early days make you think you're too late, because I heard those stories when I came in too, and I'm like, oh man, I missed the boat. This thing's going to the moon. But in terms of real dollars, we're at 170 billion. The .coms were at 7 trillion. And everybody looks at that like it's some, beware of the .com bubble. Well, if you didn't notice, the internet thing kind of worked out all right. The bubble was long over a decade ago, the so-called crash. There will be crashes in this. There will be ups and downs, but ultimately it's going to grow. And really what's really, really more important, it's not about the trillions of dollars that I think this is going to be. It's not about the money. It's about really changing the world and bringing freedom and bringing something better to the world from systems that, frankly, weren't that good, and now we have something that's better and freer. We can all be part of building it. So thank you very much.